Welcome back. Today I'm going to take a look at my last rapid game on Lichess and hopefully learn something from the way that I lost. And if I have time, I'll go to the game before that and so on. Last night I lost by checkmate on move 24. And I remember after making my last move, noticing that they had checkmate and then kind of waiting and see if they found it. And of course they did, but I don't know if I was behind before that or not. Okay, I'm going to back up here. My last move was this move, and it does look like I was behind before that. Okay, looking at this graph, it looks like I got a little bit of a lead out of the opening and still had a little bit of a lead going into the middle game, but then I gave it away. I guess the best place to start is right here where Stockfish said I had the biggest lead. I was up +8, despite not being ahead any material. It says I should have played knight to f6 here. Okay, I mean, it's a protected check, but it looks like the king just gets out of it one of two ways, probably g7 according to Stockfish. So I'm not sure exactly what would be the point of that. And then it says I would play queen to c1, but I'm not threatening that because their king has moved up to protect it. It says they would move their rook over then. Then I would bring the knight back over here to check them, and then they would come this way. Okay, well now it's +9. I'm not sure how they get +9 out of that because, yeah, earlier, I had taken their knight over here with my bishop. They put their knight there for some reason on h6, and I developed my bishop by taking it, which at the time, I felt like they took a while to take it, even though it seems like it should have been automatic. But anyway, that left that open, but I wasn't sure how to exploit it. I do remember thinking that, if I got this pawn out of here and I got my queen over here behind the bishop, I'd be able to check there and pick off one pawn. And that's what I started working toward. But first I went after this bishop because it doesn't have a lot of places to run right now. And that's why I played a3 on my next turn. But now it's only +5. I, of course, was aiming to go here and then thinking about bringing the other pawn. And I don't know, maybe trapping the knight and or bishop back there somehow. Now here they should have played f5. It says I would have taken it with en passant and they would not have taken back. Or they could have played knight to e7. But I guess they saw my pawns coming for their bishop, so they dropped the bishop back one, and then I assume we're going to play this pawn to get the bishop out of there. Again, I should have played knight to f6 check, but it was inaccurate for me to take the bishop. I just went after it thinking that was a good trade, but I should have checked, forcing their king up, and again, it would have says I would have played king to c1, and they would have played rook to g8, just like we were talking about earlier. I would have checked over here, again, just like we were talking about earlier. Again, still do not see, what's so great about that, other than forcing them to do stuff. I guess it gets in front of that pawn. That's one thing that I could see. It's a good outpost square for the knight, whichever way they get out of check. And then maybe eventually I can pick off one or both of those other pawns. Now, I do know that by bringing the queen here, once the knight's in place on f6, I understand that I guess I'm threatening mate at some point. But I'm also seeing relatively easy ways for them to get out of that. Yeah, it just seemed like a good idea to trade the knight for the bishop. But that took us down to +4. I'm still way ahead, though, even after they take back. And then I played b4. Like I said earlier, I'm coming after some of those pieces. I also thought they had doubled pawns. It would be a good idea to blockade them, maybe. But here I should have played d5 and gone after the knight immediately. Okay, now I do get that. But the knight does have places to go. It says they would go to e7. But, they could also, I suppose, drop back to one of those two squares. That seems like a fairly natural move. I probably should have done that instead of slowly coming after the knight with this b-pawn. Okay, I get that one. If I'm going to go after the knight, I should do it with the one that goes after it immediately. Okay. But since I played that, it's only +2 if they play knight to e7. They didn't play knight to e7, or their second best move, which was d5. They played d6, and I had to play queen to c1 or queen to d2. Okay, I guess still thinking about that. But I already told you that I was, thinking about lining these two up and going for their back h-pawn. And so that's why I played c4 here, but the engine is not liking that. I should have put the queen on the dark square diagonal, aiming for the undefended pawn, which it says they would respond by king to g7. And then I would play queen to f4. No matter which one of these pieces of the diagonal I had put it on to begin with, I would have gone to f4, and I'm not sure why. All right, but I played c4 for reasons I already explained, and then they took my e-pawn. I'm still supposed to play d5, coming after the knight, but instead I took the pawn. My second best move was queen to d2. Well, I took the pawn with the thought that only then my bishop would be remaining between my queen and their queen, and at some point maybe they would move that rook or something, and then I could check and win their queen. But it looks like their queen's also defended another way. d5 makes more sense. I get that. Okay, but I took the pawn for reasons I already explained. They played one of their two best moves, which was to pen the knight. I'm supposed to just defend the knight by moving the bishop up, or keeping the knight pinned by putting the queen over here. But I already explained that I was going for c2 when I moved the c-pawn, and that gets the queen out of the pin, and the knight's defended and aims at that pawn. So this was just a little worse than my best moves. They are supposed to take the knight. Okay, I wondered about that, and I'm not supposed to take back. Okay, I mean, I could take with the pawn, it says, and we would still be even, or I could take here. Okay, I thought about that, but I also thought if I took the bishop first, then I thought, oh, they'll try to fork me, but then I'll check, which gets the bishop out of danger, and once they move out of check, I'll bring the rook back. But it says to go ahead and take the h7 pawn now, or take the bishop with this. So this is the blunder that put me behind for good? No, that would only put me behind for good if they will check queen to d4 first. That's their only move, because the rook's undefended. Okay, they didn't see that until a move later. They did the thing that I thought they would do, which is take the pawn, but that's a blunder that puts me back in charge. Was it my best move to take the h7 pawn? Yes. Okay, so we're still even here according to the graph for just a couple of more moves. Okay, so I haven't lost the game yet, although I could have. They only had 2 legal moves here. It looks like they're both very similar. They picked one of them, and then it was my job to get the rook out of danger. Okay, well, I did. Honestly, I didn't even see this. I didn't see the fact that they could check me and win this, but if I had, I would have made the same move that I did, which was bring this rook back. But the engine says I need to just bring it back 1 or move it forward. Okay, I get that moving it forward. Had I moved it forward, I get that that would have been protecting the d4 square where they could have checked me from, or if I had moved it back, that would have blocked the possible check, so they wouldn't have gone there. But isn't this just as good, which defends the rook? For some reason, no, that's a mistake if they play queen to d4 check. Really? Because I'll just move over. Oh, I don't understand that. Okay, but they didn't play that. They came over here, and I needed to bring the bishop back now. Okay. Well, I went after their queen, but that's a blunder, and that I never recovered from that blunder. They should have played queen to g7. Okay, see, after I moved the rook here, that's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were going to put the queen back there, which attacks my bishop and protects the knight. I went here because I thought it was a fork, but yeah, they should have just gone back here. And again, after I moved the rook here, I thought that that's what they were going to play. But instead, they checked me on this diagonal, not the d4 where they should have earlier, but here. They're still ahead. I only have one move that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to come toward them, I don't think. Although, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly why. But regardless, I went to h1. Now they should take this. Rook captures a3. Okay, it's a free pawn. That's their only advantage, basically, if they take the free pawn on a3. Or bring this rook over to d8. Okay, not sure about either one of those. My opponent wasn't sure either. They put the knight over here. The only thing I can think of is that they were looking at h2. Yeah, h2, but I don't know how they were trying to get in there exactly, or maybe coming down here, but I've got that doubly protected, so I'm not sure. Or even again, okay, so I was wrong about that last blunder. I had to play rook a to f1, lining my 2 rooks up together, or h3. But instead, I put my rook here, which attacked their queen, I thought, and they only have one move that takes advantage of that, and that's queen to e5, which they couldn't have gone to if I had left the rook up where it was. Okay, backing up to here, I should have brought this rook over to defend the other rook. Okay, but because I attacked their queen, that allowed them to go up to e5, which I'm not defending anymore. And now they're aiming down here at h2, which is what I thought they were doing in the first place. Okay, see, I saw that a move earlier, but now I didn't see it in time. But I'm still behind, even if I play my best move now. I have to play queen to c3. That's my best. Wait, that's c3, right? Oh, it keeps their queen from moving because it pins the queen. But then they would take the bishop. Wait, is that my only defense? G3 also would have been a defense. Oh, now the rook's undefended again. Okay, all right. My goodness. Okay, so I'm just slow and not paying attention to the whole board. You know, I guess good job for my opponent for finding this. I don't know how long they spent on that move. It looks like they spent about 20 seconds on it. You know, so good job for them for finding this. It stays out of the, the path of the bishop, stays out of the path of the rook. It attacks my rook while also threatening checkmate. Okay, good job for them for finding that. Okay, so I last had a chance right here as long as I had brought this rook over. Oh, okay. Well, let's go on to the next game. Okay, for this one, I had to pause about 5 minutes because it took a long time for Stockfish to analyze this game, even though it was only 11 moves. But it was really confusing for Lichess's version of Stockfish. Anyway, I resigned here after 11 moves. Looked like my opponent had penetrated too deeply. There wasn't going to be much I could do. And also, I'm down 10 points of material right now. So, according to this down here, my opponent made a blunder. I made 2 blunders. We each had an inaccuracy. And that was all within 11 moves. So my two blunders, now I do know what my last blunder was. I left my queen there, but I think it was already behind when that happened. I'm just going to start at the beginning here. My opponent played, e4, and I played the French defense, which I have been playing. They got the knight out to f3, and I play what I always do in this situation, which is d5. Here, almost all of my opponents take that, but some of them push forward. And Stockfish says that's what the two most common moves are. This opponent took, I took back. Usually what they play here is d4, and then I get this knight out. My opponent did play d4, and I got the knight out, but Stockfish says I should have maybe gotten the other knight out. I think I've mentioned before the reason I don't do that is because I like for that knight to be behind that pawn, but Stockfish is fine with it. I'm not, because I'm not that good of a chess player. Stockfish is that good of a chess player and doesn't need as much help as I do. And one way that I get help is by getting this knight out behind that pawn. Anyway, I got the other knight out, which is just fine. We're doing great. Now here my opponent got their other knight out, and we're dead even. And my best move is bishop to d6. That's what I played. I've been in this position before. Even though we're out to 5 moves, I'm pretty sure I've seen this exact position before. What I haven't seen before is what my opponent played next, which was knight to e5. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen that this early in the game before. Well, they played that. It is my best move to castle, and I thought that it might be because, they're aiming right here. If I castle, then I have a rook defending that pawn. Okay, so I castled, doing just fine. In fact, Stockfish gives me a very slight edge. My opponent just needs to get this bishop out, or maybe the other bishop in preparation for castling, although it says all the moves after that would be pretty much identical. Oh, it says they would play both of those bishop moves over the next 2 moves, and I would probably play knight b to d7, and I would play rook to e8, and then they would take the knight on d7, and I would take that knight. Okay, but that's not how it played out, because my opponent played over here. Usually when my opponent plays that, I get the other knight in here to defend it, but this time I didn't. My queen's already defending it. This time I decided to play h6. h6 wasn't that big of a problem. We're still even, and they should take the knight. But my opponents almost never take the knight. Usually when I play this, they just drop back one, and that's what this opponent did. That says that's inaccurate, but I'm never sure what to do about it. Okay, now my problem here was playing queen to e7. That was a blunder. Okay, one of my 2 blunders. One thing I was thinking there was that it would pin that knight. I didn't know what they would play next, but I thought that knight's pinned. And then I could bring this other knight over here or something, or maybe take that with my bishop. And then when they took back with the pawn, then I would have a check, and then I could move the other knight. So it doesn't look that bad to me even now, but that's a blunder as long as they take this pawn. Okay, because that knight's pinned. But their second best move is f4. It still leaves them slightly ahead, but it's counted as a blunder because they should have taken this pawn, but instead they protected the knight. So maybe they saw what I was thinking about. I don't know. Then I played knight b to d7, but I should not have. I should have played bishop to b4. Oh, I should have pinned that knight. That would have been a good idea. Or bishop to e6, which protects my d pawn. But instead I did this. My opponent has a very slight lead if they will take the d pawn, and they did. Here, I don't know what happened. Why didn't I see that? That's crazy. Okay, well, I feel pretty bad for not seeing that their knight could take my queen. I did see that it could take over here, and I thought, let's just get that out of the way. So I played c6, forcing the issue. So I could kind of encourage them to take my queen with very little consequences. Well, that's on me. But backing up, I'm very slightly ahead. If I play rook to e8 or c5, I'm guessing there would have been a few other moves possible in there. What about knight b to d7 now? Would that have been actually bad? No, it still would have been fine. Okay, that's probably what I should have done here. But it says then they would have played f4, and then I would have played c5. But yeah, the thing that really lost me the game was not realizing they were attacking my queen. I would have been, still behind, but I probably would have been okay if I had just dropped the queen back one. But not to d1 for some reason. I probably would have dropped it back to d1. Okay. And the game before that ended in a draw by 3-fold repetition. This game went 95 moves, so we're not going to look at, all of it. But it does look like I only had a lead right there going into the middle game, just like the last one. Then my opponent led through the rest of the middle game and in the beginning of the end game, but then it slowly came back to even. But then I gave it to them and they didn't take advantage multiple times. Okay, so I could have forced a draw as early as move 39. Well, I had at least 2 different moves here that would have held it at zeros, and I played one of them. And it looks like for several more moves, we kept it fairly even. So we're here, and the game is still at zeros on move 50. Okay, and here I needed to play king to d2, which comes after their bishop. I get that. Or rook to e8. Rook to e8 goes after this pawn, okay. If I had played that It says they would have brought their rook up to protect the pawn, and then I would have played king to d2. But if I had played king to d2 first, they would have brought their bishop back, and then I would have played rook to h6, coming after the pawn this way. Okay, but instead I blundered by playing rook to d8. I will say that the reason that I played that is because I knew that was a safe square for it, because my bishop's protecting it. But it's not a safe square because they could have just taken my bishop. Oh, wow. Okay, well, I get that now. That makes sense. I don't know if I would have found that if I was my opponent, because obviously when I took, then they would get my rook and they would just have to come stop the passed pawn that I had over there. My opponent didn't see it either. Oh man, I'm hoping that I would have seen that if I'd been in their shoes. Instead, they started bringing their king around this way, so we're even again. There's a whole bunch of different moves that keep us even. I went in there, I'm attacking this pawn and pinning that one. My opponent can protect that pawn a number of ways. They chose this one. I decided to go back here and check. We're still very close to even. They went toward my bishop, and I brought it back over here, kind of wrapping around. A little bit later, we're here, and we're still at zeros on going into move 63, and I need to take this undefended pawn. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I take that undefended pawn? Or play a4? But for some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to check them, even though I know that when they move out of check, I'm going to be in check. Oh my goodness. But they only had one way to take advantage of that. Moving down wouldn't have done it for some reason. Had they played king to c2 or king to b2, it would have gone back to even. Only going up would have helped them here, and they went up to c4. I don't know why. If any of you know why that these two are bad, but going up here is good, let me know. Yeah, why is coming down to the second rank bad for them? I'm not sure. Oh, I know why. Because of this pawn, right? That's why. Because I can't go up because of their bishop. And I have to go down somewhere, and then they get that pawn. Okay, I think I understand it. I should have gone to f2 or d2. They're about the same. I went this way thinking I would stay closer to the rook. And they should have taken this pawn or checked me again. But instead, they went toward my rook, which allows me to check them. So they get out of check, and we're basically back to even again. If I'll play king to e2 or rook to a4, there might be another move, but instead I played rook to c5. That puts my opponent ahead, but only if they check me here on d3. They didn't see that. They played their second best move, which brings us back to even again. Why is that bad? It goes after an undefended pawn. I need to play rook to c3, which lets them take the f pawn, or rook to c1, which lets them take the f pawn. Okay, I don't know why either one of those would be good, letting them have the f pawn. I pushed this pawn thinking I could at least get it in front of the bishop, but that's bad because my opponent can check me still on rook to d3. Again, they didn't. They took the pawn, which is that's why they went over there. That's what I thought they were going to do, but we're even again now. But I don't know why we're even again, because this pawn is hanging. I can check them, which is what I did, or I can play king to c3 and protect that pawn. But I checked them. They went back, which I don't know how many choices they had, and then I protected that pawn. I can protect it with either the bishop or the king. I protected it with the bishop, and then we're even for a long time after that. We were even for another like 30 moves, nearly 30 moves, 25 moves, something like that. I kind of thought we might be even here, but I also thought I have a passed pawn, and they don't. So I held out a little bit of hope that I was ahead here, but it turns out to not be the case. Okay, well, as you can see, I haven't perfected this art yet. If any of you are doing really well right now, let me know. Or if you're struggling, let me know that too. Sometimes it makes us feel better if we're all struggling together. Or if it makes you feel better to brag about how good you're doing, that's fine too. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.